Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Coastal Conclave. We have our new episode of our chat interview show called Secrets of the Conclave. Secrets. That's now the thing. Everybody now has to do that on the stream when we're doing secrets, because that is the aesthetic we're going for here.
Andy.
Yes.
Andy.
Stop talking. We literally just whisper the whole session. That's exactly how it's going to go from now on.
An hour and a half of us just shushing each other.
Just be like, shh, can't say anything, can't say anything, can't say anything. But yes, welcome to, it's essentially, I think we're up to episode 4 of Secrets of the Conclave. And I'm just going to move this over here so I can actually look sort of in the vicinity of the camera and not be like looking over here or looking over here. And what we're going to do is, I have 2 esteemed and excellent guests on tonight. We have the wonderful, the fantastic Richard, who plays Lolliput. And we also have the amazing, the exemplary Mike, who plays Faustus. I almost did. The Lolliput's here is so amazing, and I guess Mike's here as well. Richard's just like, that's fair. So we're going to keep things light. We're going to keep things cruisy. So thank you all for joining us. Secrets of the Conclave. We're going to do 3 things tonight. We're going to jump into some questions, some deep and meaningful questions for these 2 players and their characters around events and things that have been going on up to and including Session 8. And then we're going to play a couple of just inspired by Mike's sort of stint at this last time. We did a little game called Kiss, Marry, Avoid or something like that. We're going to do Kiss, Marry, Kill. And what would your character rather? 2 little fun games that I've decided to incorporate into this. And then we're going to ask the fan questions, which we did have a couple. And a couple from a new fan who hasn't asked anything before. So we'll be able to see what they've got to say or what questions they have for our guests. And the only other thing is that the questions for the general stuff is I've decided to take the kid gloves off and we're going to get real tonight. We're going to go real hard. There's some hard questions. Going to make these 2 sweat. It is going to be, like I said, an interrogation, less so an interview.
Hard questions, but also
yeah, but don't also tell anybody about them. Like if you're watching tonight, we're going to just forget what you saw afterwards. But before we kick off, don't forget we do have 2 sponsors, and by 2 sponsors we are continuing on with Roll with Advantage. They have extended us for another month to give us our fantastic 12% off discount for all of our viewers. Those links will be on our socials, or if you still have the old link, you can still access the Coastal Conclave website link for Roll with Advantage, which will allow you to register for those 12% discount and get some of that. Look at that. That's some shiny, good click-clacks that do the math, people. Roll with Advantage, if anybody doesn't know, is a Melbourne-based family-run business. Samantha and the team down there are absolutely incredible to not only support us, but they have just an amazing business. They are an online dice shop. All the magic click-clack rocks that you can ask for, and you've got sharp edge, you've got metal dice, you've got glitter dice, you've got dice with friends in it, you've got dice with liquid in it, you got dice with squiggly eyes. So there's a lot. She's done really well, and they're affordable. That is the big thing. If you had to obviously buy dice overseas before, that would have been very expensive, and you would have had to wait weeks. Very fast delivery times for Samantha and the team down there, and they are of good price, very affordable price.
Great customer service as well. Like we've all gotten dice recently, and I got like a nice little handwritten.
Yeah, she writes a thank you, a handwritten thank you in every single one of her packages, which is just
I like the little business card too with the adventurer. Was it look, I'm
Mm.
biased. I'm going to call it a corgi. I think it was a corgi. Yeah. Okay, so it's not a corgi, but still. Yeah, look at that. Look
Close
at
enough.
that.
Some stickers and stuff like that. Just little things. It just really sprinkles that glittery goodness onto what is already an absolutely fantastic product. So check it out, guys, and look out on our socials for all those juicy links to get those deals. And our other sponsor, as always, is Eldritch Foundry, who are always giving us our 15% off single mini purchases. Use their online creation tool to create your own custom character with their suite of hundreds and hundreds of different customizable options and build the hero that you deserve on your tabletop. With our code CConclave15 at checkout, you get our 15% off deal with them on those single mini purchases, and they'll ship to you, and they are very, very high quality. We've got an evader on the pitch. The auto scan's
Yeah,
like,
he's
another person.
he's going for the lolly jar.
Yeah, nice.
I thought we were just talking because we're talking about miniatures. We just zoomed to the miniature human being.
Yeah. Eldritch Foundry. Get your own minion. They actually cost quite a bit, so really think about it before you make the commitment.
But if you use our code CConclave15, they're 15% off.
That's all right.
Oh wait, no, it doesn't apply to children, miniature humans.
He's like literally got half a dozen of them. I'll be right back.
Well, while we wait for Mike, those are our two main sponsors, and we do have a few other things in the pipeline. Hopefully some of that stuff will come to fruition soon, and we'll be able to share with you some of the other great partnerships that we are trying to join with in order to help propagate this stream, but also support some local and Aussie-based businesses as well. So keep an eye out for some of those goodies coming in the near future. Well, I think that is probably enough for intros. So let's get to... Sorry?
Warmed us up now. Time to start slamming us with the questions. Kid gloves are off.
Yep, kid gloves off. Throwing those gloves off. This interview chat show is totally going to get started in about 30 seconds. We've got Mike, we've got Richard, we've got Falsus, we've got Lolliput, and these are some questions that we are just going to mull over. We're going to try and dig a little bit deeper into some of the stuff that's been going on in the actual campaign. We're now 8 episodes in, episode 9 coming out not tomorrow. We have the Star Wars one shot tomorrow, but next week we jump back into Chronicles of Amar with episode 9, and it's been going really good. So I guess the first question, and this is for either of you to answer, is what do you think are some of the most important things that have happened in the campaign so far, and what is the most significant event that you feel affects your character and what they're trying to do? Let's start with Mike. Mainly because he looks like he's the one thinking the hardest.
Yeah. So, I think that the first part of the question, I think arguably it's everybody's commitment to the character that they were going to play, and that started in the first episode. And Faustus is a good example, where the DM throws combat down, Lilith's getting attacked by these bandits, and Faustus just watches. Meanwhile, a drunken Lolliput stumbles out, sees something going down, and just starts wantonly shooting magics around the square. The way that the characters sort of came together, it made sense for some characters to band together initially, and then for example for Faustus, and then even you could say later in some of the episodes with Vidiri, where she's sort of doing her own thing, like she's not really she's unsure about the group, so that commitment to the character and not just sort of metagaming where, hey, I've got to stay together because hey, we got to play, and there's always that element. But so I think that to the first part of the question, and in terms of the events, I think that in the sandbox of Amar, Luke's thrown a lot of stuff down. There's, I think I'll speak for Faustus. So there are two major things. So for him, with his connection with Eldith and nature, it is very much the blight and trying to understand why that's spreading now. So that's sort of a personal thing linked to the way he sees Amar and what's important. But then that's combined with the dreams and the reaping that happened recently in Elnest. So the fact that it seemed that there are people of faith that were abducted or have gone missing, and the events with the blight, those two things seem incredibly significant. To me as a player, but also as Faustus.
Nice, thank you, Richard. What about you? What are the most important things that you think have happened in the campaign so far? And I guess what are the most significant events for Lolliput, Lathenway?
Yeah, so, I mean, event-wise, for the campaign in general, some of the big, like, story fulcrums we seem to have kind of hit, or are still kind of in the process of moving through. It's definitely like the events that kind of happened in the one shot, the very first episode. Like like nothing's been confirmed yet, so this is really just on speculation side. But the idol which was taken from the temple around the blight seems to have kicked off, or at least started to play into the larger events that we're kind of seeing now. And in terms of, once again, the campaign, that dream that happened in Honest, was it
Elnest.
Elnest? Yeah, the town. While it didn't really affect Lolliput a great deal, he's kind of still fairly ambivalent to most goings on in the world, being a spoilt noble who only thinks about himself a majority of the time. That seems to be quite significant for what's kind of happening in the world, and we're still kind of feeling the aftershocks, I think, of those two events starting to kind of ripple out. The third one, which seems to be less of an event and more just kind of like a general miasma, which is kind of permeating the world, is this kind of how magic users are treated. And we kind of saw echoes of that throughout the campaign and in our Cult of Hunger as well. It seems to really kind of form, at least a significant way about how I'm interpreting the world as like a player. And then big events for Lolliput himself, there's really only one, because the rest of them were all just like fun things to do on the way to the shop. And that was finding out that the Adventurers Guild was effectively some sort of
Heartbroken.
Oh, it was gutting. It was gutting. So Lolliput put so much stock in kind of like following in his mother's footsteps, who's kind of like the head of her household, and also kind of quite an acclaimed adventurer in her own right, and to kind of come over here and find that this evil empire, as he kind of sees it, is effectively using it as some form of like franchisee to take over kind of like land and stuff. It really just took the wind out of his sails in a pretty significant way. So yeah, that's kind of a big one, and kind of where he takes us from now in terms of like finding his own way to become an adventurer and somebody of value as he sees it. That's I guess stuff that he's looking to at the moment.
Nice.
What's interesting about that is with that third part, the treatment of magic users. It's interesting because for Lolliput, with him being a new traveler to the Aralarian Imperium, he is sort of witnessing that, and then you as a player are sort of drawing on that. Whereas for me as Faustus, I've lived in this for some time, and it's one of those things where he's a priest, he's goodly, he follows a a divine entity that is is good, However, he doesn't seek to right what are these injustices that for anybody hearing about the law of the world um, and the Imperium would be like, and particularly if you watch that one shot with I'll call her Raki, and you've got these magic users in chains and things. It's interesting, I think, that Faustus just kind of like lets that sort of go. I mean, admittedly, Eldith is like it's pacifist. It's all about harmony and things like that. But at the same time, what I love about the characters and what they're sort of is showing up, that for Lolliput it's like that, but then for Faustus it's like completely like he doesn't even see it because he's like just a part of that world, doesn't even question it.
It's good. Cool. Well, funnily enough, you answered another question that comes later, Lolliput, around. Yeah, I know. You killed two birds with one stone. It's excellent. But I guess, are there any other thoughts? We'll sort of just hold ourselves on that for 2 seconds, which is the Adventurers Guild. And I guess that event about, holy crap, this is just an Empire, basically scam in his eyes. I guess, are there any other elements of his history, his experiences that you've built around that character that makes you what drives the decision of how you have Lolliput play out those events? Why he gets that anger and all that kind of stuff?
So, I might go into the backstory a little bit, but just still in kind of fairly general terms. So you have to kind of picture a really quite a pampered noble who's spent almost his entire life within the compound of like a quite a large estate for a really wealthy household. And his mother is quite grounded, having had some time being an adventurer and making a name for herself and having the kind of notoriety that kind of comes along. And being an only child in this massive estate, he's had to entertain himself with, effectively putting on characters, making games of it, living out his own adventures in these theatrical like tales and personas that he puts on. And it's really been something that he's kind of brought into adulthood. Like he's never going to be a barbarian unless I multiclass, which is probably unlikely. But his feats of strength are in the like how he manipulates the situation. So what better than to kind of like work out how to be a hero from hanging out with a lot of amazing adventurers, finding the little bits of their personalities that he can kind of cobble together into the hero Lolliput, the make it till you make it Lolliput. And to have that kind of taken away or tainted by the idea that he would be, he might even like be encroaching, empowering the entity that might bring down his home world, his homeland, just to kind of like get himself into a better position where when he returns back home, they'd accept him as the head of the household, the new scion. It eroded everything that he had dreamed about, like this gap year turning out to be.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's why he was so angry, so upset, and so hurt that like he'd been kind of fairly flippant up to this point, like yeah, we'll get there, and I'll do this thing, and then to have that just be like rug literally pulled out from under him with a few careless words by our DM. It just that's the only way I can kind of react to the situation.
Any
Careless.
Any real life parallels there for Richard? Drawing inspiration from anything?
I don't know. I probably like a little bit. I think we probably all have bits of our own fractured personalities embedded in our characters for good or ill sometimes. But no direct parallels I can draw to my personal life. But Mike is known me for a very long time, so maybe he can draw some parallels where I can't. Wait, maybe I'm too close to the problem.
Yeah. Michael would just be like, Richard, what are you talking about? Lolliput is exactly like you.
You're a complete sociopath.
Fake it till you make it. Written all over Richard.
You literally have that
What?
tattooed on the back of your head.
Remember when we were in Thailand
just
for that gap year?
well, if I think the direct analogy, kind of, isn't there unless there's a secret history of your mother, Richard, that I'm completely unaware of. It wouldn't surprise me because she does strike me as a bit of a badass. But if that's the case, I had no idea, and she's hit it well. But one of the things to me that I remember was, at least for a time there, you were very much like I don't know, like a drama or a theater nerd. As much as we had that type in our school, it was like you and Dean were like that, and I see parallels, in that, in Lolliput. So, like I say, you don't have to reveal any secrets of your family on stream about the secret history of being an adventurer. But that is something that, definitely to me sort of comes out in that character.
Let's just say if one of them's true, they're probably all true.
Awesome. Well,
But don't tell anybody. It's a secret.
Yeah, don't mess my mum. That's apparently that's the thing we do. At the end of each sort of like section of questions, we have to be like, "Shh, don't say anything." That will get very old very quickly. All right, so
or edited horribly.
All right. Well, moving on. So we'll jump back to you, Mike, because you talked about the reaping being a very very big moment for your character, for Falstus. In that, he's very much a priest. He's very much focused his sort of characterization around that. With the reaping, what was going through your character's mind? What thought processes are you thinking about Falstus is using to react to the event? I told you these were hard questions.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. So, I think that one of the things I might say, it's kind of a half an answer. So feel free to pull me up on that as I give you my half answer. Is that, it's not that things haven't been happening in the Imperium. I could think of one event that happened 30 years ago into Faustus's past that was quite significant. But it's one of those things that he hasn't had this type of experience or, had something like this happen before. So it's sort of uncharted territory for him, though he's seen, sort of the common things. So, he's traveled across the Imperium for, at least the last few decades now. As sort of a wandering healer and tinkerer. He's traveled on ships and gone with adventurers and sort of just played his part to some degree in those things. But like it's one of those. I think sometimes in a bit of table talk, we sort of take it for granted that in Dungeons and Dragons that there are these huge like cosmic shifting events but for the characters in the world, this is probably the first time something like this has happened. If this has happened more than once to a character, wow, that's, I don't know, you're either doing something very right or something very wrong.
Yeah.
And so, it reminds me of a line in Transformers, the movie, the 1986 film, where Cup who's like the grizzled old veteran of the Autobots, is looking at Unicron through the shuttle monitor, and someone asks him for what he thinks, and he's like, I ain't never seen anything like this before, and he's like basically seen everything. So to some degree, so he's reaching for his faith and trying to understand that. There's a great many things that don't make sense about it. The fact that both Ishmir and himself shared a dream, that through I think it was a very insightful check by a Lenny, and then coupled with a pretty good history check, given that I grew up around a pretty big library, they were able to piece together some of the things about the reaping. Um, so, yeah, I guess how he's thinking about it is he has nothing to directly relate a similar experience to. And he's sort of going to his scriptures and his faith and trying to process these completely um, unusual events, through that lens. And in some ways is kind of feeling like wanting, like that it hasn't served him enough, that, even with the blight and other things, that he hasn't seen these things coming, that he's sort of just, even though he's in the world, he's very surprised by the events. So
he normally looks for to his deity, his priest's training for some guidance, some answers, and kind of feels not lost, but as if like he's not getting enough reassurance that things are going to be okay.
I think it's like anything, if you're faith takes effort, and I think that the natural sort of doubts that are occurring for Faustus are largely sort of dismissed from the point of view of him, committing to, the idea of his goddess and, the waterfall of life, that life is this flowing stream and, it flows a certain way. And you just go with those currents. So he's kind of like, even though he, by comparison to the rest of the adventurers, he doesn't seem like a very chill dude. He's a pretty chill dude, you know. Um, so at the same time, these things have caught him very by surprise. And, it's not like he thinks he's like some, special favorite priest of Eldith or something like that, but he's a little bit like, I can't believe I didn't get the memo.
Yeah.
I Maybe the dream was the memo, though.
Yeah. Very much so. It felt like it. It was just like a bit by the way.
But I don't get the Ishmael connection. Yeah, the Ishmael connection there with Pello is his deity. That it strikes me as, whilst there's some, it's not like he's a following some god from the abyss or something. There's a natural connection there, but it's just interesting, I guess.
Maybe the deity hit the send all button. There's actually sent it to the whole address book.
They're like, oh, I probably shouldn't have sent it to a few of those people.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah, that makes a little bit more sense. But Faustus is probably feeling a little bit more like he should be on the speed dial, not part of like the bulk CC.
Yeah. Which kind of that line of questioning follows into, so much like when I talked to Richard about, I guess, the Adventurers Guild thing. The reaping also came with it, I guess, events of you and Ishmael were able to get a sense that the god's bond with the mortal realm was strained or waning, or there was something going on with it, and it was getting weaker per se. I guess
I'd actually forgotten that.
Good thing I remembered, because how does Faustus feel about that? How is he processing that element of it? And what is he thinking? Where's his thinking at in order to, how is he going to get answers to what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's not it's like the fire elemental and Charlie showing up. It's not that these things aren't important to him, they are. It's just he's had this dream, and the pull to protect nature and understand what's going on there is just so strong for him as a character, that I think that in a lot of ways he's sort of got this bias, this motivated reasoning towards thinking that that must somehow be connected to this. So, whilst we as players and, sort of aware of some of the other things that are happening with some of the other characters, you can start to see these narratives coming together, the weakening of the plane of boundaries with the Ashali, sort of thread, and, the, let's call it a lack of signal, or clarity with, divine connections, that's sort of showing up for Vidiri, and, sort of bringing it back to the reaping. So I think that, at the moment, Faustus is very much focused on how the blight is a part of that. I have a question over here from the audience. Yep.
Fair.
That's that. So yeah, maybe throw to Richard for a second. But yeah, that's more or less how how Faustus is thinking about it. He's not really thinking about the planes, and what's happening sort of there. Not least of all because the player bloody forgot.
Yeah, we don't talk about that part of it. I'm
just gonna mute myself. Be right back.
No, all good, mate. Excellent. No, good answers to that, Mike. Thank you for that. I guess, yeah, for what we're looking at in the events up to and including episode 8, those kind of being the big ones for Lolliput and Falsters that really sort of drive, I guess, much that's coming next, and a lot of the questions that they might need answering in their own personal quests. So we'll sort of switch gears just a tiny little bit and jump into a couple of, I guess, reactionary sort of things around some of the events that have happened. No Witnesses, aptly named episode, and a very, very interesting sort of event that happened, I think it was episode 5 or something like that, where the group was traveling just sort of just north of, I think we just left Elnast, I think. Yeah, that rings a bell.
Literally the morning of the reaping.
Yes, it was. And we came across a Imperial Empire convoy with some prisoners. So we have an idea about the group's propensity with how they handle the Imperium. So I guess
murder.
Yeah. Well, I used a fancy word for it, but what I wanted to understand is how did you think about how your character would act in that situation? What do you feel are the core elements of your characters at this stage that drove them to do the things that they did? Just your characters. Let's not talk about the others, because some of them are quite simple and easy.
Stabby, Lilith?
I'm not... No comment. We're not talking about me. Richard, well, you can go first. Lolliput. I guess he was kind of the instigator, realistically. What was going through his mind? Well, what do you think was going through his mind when he saw that moment and acted the way that he did?
What do I think? Well, I don't need to think because I was his mind and he is me. As already established, there is very little difference between.
There's no line. It's you've method acted yourself to just become the character.
Yeah, I can't work out now if I'm just one of his personalities or he's one of mine.
I'm waiting for him to show up to some backwater town and just be like, "Hi, I'm Richard O'Brien."
Yeah. It could be. Yeah. Let's just get really meta with it. So it's really easy actually. So like Lolliput was, as I said, pampered noble, and still very much is in his own way. he was lounging in the back of this wagon. There was a bit of a hubbub in town, which he was half listening to. He just discovered this kind of new fantastic ability to take on any form that he'd liked, which is, for a character actor, oh, just manna from heaven. And so he's in the back of this cart and he sees this transport go by, and he's got his own opinions about the Empire and how they kind of handle magical abilities, especially for somebody who has innate magical abilities. That's like, that's telling him to be, less than he is. And that's all one thing. That's all on this side of here about like just general grumblings about the Empire. And he almost let the thing go by. And me as the conduit to which Lolliput enacts his desires upon the world and the game. I remember our fantastic DM Luke sent through this questionnaire before we started, and I was filling it out, and very much it was all just like, selfish, selfish, selfish. Next line, next line, next line, and I got to one line at the end there, and I can't remember what the prompt was, but essentially it was the answer was something like, he tries to do good, and that, after all the stuff he's kind of been through, all his kind of background, all the pampering and the selfishness and the snobbery which kind of comes along, and the entitledness which comes along with who he thinks he is and what he thinks he deserves, he couldn't let somebody go by in that kind of situation, like bound and gagged, helpless, being driven off to who knows where, like a piece of meat, like a tool, without at least just trying to even the playing fields. And that's all Lolliput did. And that's all he really wanted to do, was just give that person a chance. Now, that chance resulted in a fireball exploding quite a few people, but, it's kind of like the trolley problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
that's fair.
It's a pretty apt, like, do you sacrifice? It's all about intent, and his intent was to give this one person some choice, and that's what he did. So I quite like the name of the episode, No Witnesses, because we didn't have any witnesses at the end of it, and nobody really witnessed what Lolliput did. So it kind of works on two levels there.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Well, thank you, Richard, for that insight into Lolliput for that event. I guess what's Falstus? What did this explosion happened? I do believe that you, Mike, you tried to bring a little bit more of what was going through his head as the events were happening. But I guess what main elements of your character drives how he acted and trying to do the things that he did.
Yeah, so in a lot of ways, it begins and ends with his faith in his goddess Eldith, and Eldith is a god of peace. So he seeks diplomatic solutions. It's not that he's like blind to the troubles of the Imperium, nor the injustices of the broader world. It's that for him, I'm having so many thoughts at the same time, but for him, it's that he doesn't see how you can solve the problem of, violence and injustice by committing acts of injustice yourself. So now, Arden can say he knows the minds of Templars all he wants. But in the interaction in that episode between Faustus and Arden, a lot of things played out, the truth is that unless Arden knew that Templar and their actions and who they were, their history, how they had come to be there, who is he to be judge, jury, and executioner? So it starts with peace as a philosophy, and then extends to well, let's say that the triumvirate of the Imperium is out of balance. You know, how is behaving in a manner that evokes Tempest going to bring it into balance? It's not. You know, you're really just feeding. You know, you're feeding that. Where I was going with the multiple thoughts is what I like about the adventurers and sort of the tensions between the different motivations of the characters is, you know, I'm looking forward to that being sort of tested over time, you know, and have that, you know, play out because, you know, it depends on how you tally these things up. You know, if you look at the actions of Lolliput, on one side, you might go, it was just to release this prisoner. Um, if you balance up, and you know, I'm not Bahamut, but you know, if you were to put out some scales, do you want to? Can you hold up your hands like this, Osby? Like this? Yeah, you just balance it for me. Yep. Um, you know, that action led to the immolation of several guards who may or may not have been innocent, um, to release a creature that was innocent, as best we can tell thus far, though we have no reason to actually know that to be the case. Um, and then because we had to cover our tracks basically for selfish motivations, not for the not for any altruistic reason other than to have no witnesses. Um, we then proceeded to literally eat one alive, drop a cart on one's head, um, smash a defenseless person who was on the ground having his mind gently read, but was otherwise completely helpless. Like if I would love for Duncan Knuckle to be the attorney that tries to defend the adventurers when they're put on trial for that. Because I don't know, I don't know how that plays out, man. Like, so yeah, so you know, um,
Like, but
there's
I
so
think Holstus might be the first one that Duncan Knuckle throws under the bus for violating uh, data privacy uh, and personal information.
Yeah.
so yeah, there's I mean, definitely conflicted. You know, but at the core is the tenets of the faith, you know, basically being in alignment with his deity, the triumvirate, and trying to, you know, play a longer game. You know, like, you know, he's an elf, long lived. Um, you know, if a bird falls out of a nest, I mean, you know, I mean that's kind of part of nature, you know. So how much do you intervene in there? And as a sort of a peaceful pacifist style religion, um, you know, it's hard to reconcile that as a priest of that faith.
Yep.
Here's one for you. If a fire elemental burns a bunch of people,
Mhm.
is that not within nature?
Oh, I mean, how far do you want to take that? Because everything's a part of the world.
Exactly.
You know, we seem to give special, um, I don't know, significance to, you know, if we overlay ourselves as individuals and get a bit philosophical for a second, specific
Only for a second.
emphasis to the agency of people, and then that flows over into the game. You know, whereas you know, let's say a bestial creature, you know, let's say like a bear or something, you know, maims a small child. Well, you know, you'd say it's nature. Now you put in an ancient black dragon where it has intent, you know, and it burns of, you know, an orphanage. You know, now we you know, so where do you go with all that? You know, and truthfully, I don't know. It's a bit grey, isn't it?
Always is, always is. Very, very philosophical. It'll be interesting to see how, I guess, as things progress, Falsus finds what his point of reference, I guess, is the main thing. Um,
He has a point of reference, Andy, and it's Eldith.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. So where are we doing for time? Oh, of course. Um, let's have a look. We'll try and get a couple more in, and then we'll jump into We'll probably do games
I like
after
these
break.
questions, by the way.
Yeah, thank
They're
you.
really good.
So let's do this one. This one's a nice easy one, and by easy I mean not really, but it is. Every character has their proclivities. What is the thing? I guess other party members do that annoys the hell out of your character, and what is one thing that they admire?
Sorry, at the same just probably killed your question there, but for context, I'm sending a message on the message app, and there's photos of my daughter on there, and he's like, "Why is Everly in that car?" And yeah, so yeah, and they're pretty adorable photos.
Fair
Hey,
call.
Osby, what did I say? What did I say about the stream tonight?
Hang out
Yeah,
with
yeah, you
hang
play
out
your
with
playground.
everybody.
So if you would be so kind, what was the question?
The question, very very simple. What do other characters do in terms of their proclivities that annoys your character? And I guess what's one thing? Let's do one thing because otherwise, could be here all night. And one thing that they admire. So one thing that any character of the party does that pisses the shit out of your character, and one thing that they admire.
Oh, the imagery. You go first, Richard.
Oh, okay. One thing that pisses Lolliput off another character would have to be a Lenny messing up his cravats. Have
Carafes.
some ridiculous distraction. These things have really high thread count. They're packed in a particular way as well for easy grabbing. He's already one down after leaving his pack in the bar overnight. It took him a while to get some of the wrinkles out, and just disregard for just the finer things.
Yep. Yeah. Okay.
One thing he loves though, one thing he admires is just Ares' optimism. Because Ares is almost like the two are somewhat aligned in Lolliput's trying to become more heroic, and Ares is already at that. I'm pushing my brand here,
Yeah.
and it's not a lie if you believe it. That type of mentality.
If you put him on a lie detector, yeah, it'd just be like, did you kill an ancient red dragon? He'd be like, absolutely, and I'll be like,
Yes.
He's telling the truth.
Son of a bitch. He did.
He's the George Costanza of being a hero.
Yeah.
Over to you, Mike.
I'm not just being diplomatic here, but for Faustus, whilst there have been some moments of, sort of, I guess, frustration for him in gaming character, he more or less sees most of the quirks of the other party as part of. He almost sees functionally and in character is sort of let's try to keep these people alive, in this dangerous world, almost like a guide, that perhaps he can bring harmony to some of the chaos. So, both Ares and Lolliput, they're their pursuits are their pursuits are noble, but he admires them. He doesn't see it as a problem. Ishbir and Eleni, very small sample to work with. In the sense that he's still trying to tease them out. I mean, the dropping of the cart, but that so the murder part of things, even though he kind of gets it, it's the same with Aradin. If there was anyone he's gotten into with about anything, it was Aradin. Vidiri is still closed off, so there's nothing that she really does. And then yeah, so who does that leave? That's pretty much everybody, right? So yeah, I can't say that there's anything, and even with Lilith, you know, force of nature, just bizarre. He's intrigued, you know. Um, I I think that in general, so broadly, like he mentioned, I think in his arcane recap, like this party has left a wake behind them. If there's anything that annoys him, is the fact that they cannot see that their actions have consequences, and these actions will catch up with them, and that's across the bloody board. Probably thinks doubly so for Ishmir and Eleni, who should know better. you know um and for all of Ishmir's talking about keeping like Eleni together, he's got a terrible track record so far, in by my estimation. In terms of something he finds, you know, um, endearing, or that he loves about one of the other characters, and it's equal for probably Arius and Lilliput in that bond that you were talking about, Richard, is that um, that sense of them wanting to, improve themselves, and to become, more than they are. Um, so I think that he admires that.
Nice. Yes, not an easy one, and yeah, it's fine to, I guess, if the character is doesn't get too annoyed with any one person. It's more a collective thing, and I think that's very much, yeah, in line with Falstus's, like you're all like doing this. You're all leaving a trail of not just distraction, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's left in the wake of this party at the moment, and how is that
Yeah,
going to bite us in the ass later?
several lies. There may have been deceptions,
It's fine.
scams. You know,
Before we take a quick break, we've got 5 minutes before what I intended to be our break point, and then we'll try and smash through the second half of it. We'll do one more of my many questions that I had down, which is good that we managed to burn an hour without answering all of them. Means that I got stuff for next time. So, I mean, I do apologize. I was not at the last session. But from what I saw and heard, it was a big lore dump session. Lots of lore, lots of information, lots of investigative work. But from it, there are many threads to pull on. What, I guess, are you thinking your character will be pushing to be to the main task at hand? Mike, you could start this one.
he's very close to going and seeing this blight. The thing is that if the corruption is spreading and is creating like all these corrupting wildlife, it's getting more and more dangerous. Like there's literally like, even if it's a young dragon, a dragon in the mountains, and trolls, having incursions on Mordoon, those he'd need help to travel, north to sort of see the blight himself. And I know that at least one of the elven characters, I don't have my notes in front of me, had mentioned that it was, if we traveled through the forest for a while, we'd probably start to see evidence of it. So I think that he's probably going to be looking to sort of head towards the Lich. The thing is that the motivation for that originally was as a gateway to get a Charlie home. That problem was solved in the last episode, but now we know that there's a Lich at a keep, and that does not sit well with Faustus. That there is this embodiment of corruption, that's a bit allowed to persist. So I think there's an element of that, and so for him, ultimately, his goal though is to see the corruption for himself and derive his own report and get back to, the main circle of Eldith back in Aralar. That's his current sort of the main thing that he's trying to do. So whatever allows him to do that is sort of where he's going to go.
Yeah, so given that there just seems to be no time pressure based on the information he's been able to gather, if he requires a strong group of people around him, which he seems to have ingratiated yourself with this group of people, any small or minor or sort of outlier tasks that they could do quickly enough to gain their confidence to help you would be okay to sort of circumvent and then move you on to your own sort of thing type thing. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Cool. That's good. Richard, what about you? Lolliputs. All the information going into his big mega mind. What's his main driver? What's he want to push towards?
Well, the main drive at the moment, and Lilith wasn't there for the recruitment drive, but I'm looking forward to getting her on the books. Is this budding coterie of heroes, this new adventurers guild that he's starting up?
I've
Equality
heard
of
of it.
heroicity for the common people at a flat percentage rate, which is very, very competitive. But that's one of the things he's trying to do. Like, Adventurous Guild isn't going to be his avenue to heroic deeds, then he'll find his own. And I'm having a bit of a trouble like separating what Richard knows as a player from what Lollipop knows as a character from the last session. But some of the things which really peaked out to possibly both of us, if we both have this knowledge, was this the undead lord, I think it was, who previously resided in the keep, with this lich now occupies, and also they had some part to play in the large battle. This kind of a celestial, a huge kind of godlike encounter that shook the realms. I think it was at the last convergence. These to a betting man would seem to be interesting avenues to explore to kind of drill down deeper into maybe the blight, which is rotting. It wouldn't be a sharp jump away from a lich or necromantic like abilities, and to the reaping, which is kind of happening as well. So Lollipop's really just trying to push the guild and get as many recruits as possible at the moment, and a lich under his belt will be really good. Richard kind of thinks that that's a good avenue to explore to further the plot.
Yeah. Nice.
Coterie of heroes.
I do
It's
like
like it's like as a player, I had blocked out that was a thing.
I do like that could be our group name, I think, if you recruit everybody in the team.
Yeah.
Awesome. In that case, what we're going to do, thank you everybody who's stuck with us. Hopefully we've managed to give you a little bit more real in-depth insights into, I guess, but don't tell anybody, into Mike and Richard's sort of way of how they're thinking, of how their characters are evolving, how their characters think in some of the more significant events that have happened during the campaign. And what we're going to do, we're just going to take a very quick 5-minute break, and we'll come back for a couple of quick games, and then we'll get on to fan questions. So we'll be back in a quick second. And we're back. Sorry, just had to scoff some food. But we are returning to you with Secrets of the Conclave, our Coastal Conclave chat interview show. We have our esteemed guests. Yeah, well lit. Richard and Mike. Richard plays Lolliput Lethenway on the Chronicles of Amar, and Mike plays Falstus Delphi on the Chronicles of Amar as well. And you have some characters in another thing we do, which is Cult of Hunger, but I can't remember what they're called.
Fig Duskwood.
Fig Duskwood. No, I know. So we've had some really hard hitting, really sort of philosophically and more sort of deep divey type questions around the characters and how they have sort of reacted and dealt with some of the events leading up to episode 8. What we're going to do for the second half, however, is we're going to jump into a quick game. We're going to do 2 games, and we'll make them very quick because we're burning the candle on both ends at this point, and then jump over to some fan questions. Got a couple fan questions. Hopefully, in the future, I can cull back some of the main ones. We can just have more fan questions. But we did manage to get one in the chat as well, so we'll go from there. So the first game is Kiss, Marry, Kill. It's going to be 3 rounds. So I'm going to give you 3 individuals each, and as your characters, you need to tell me which one they will kiss, which one they'll marry, and which one they will kill. Richard will be very happy that I've chosen this format as as he was screaming at Mike last time about it.
Yeah, he's the architect of this chaos.
So, for round 1, so I'll give you guys just a quick second to think about it, and then whoever wants to jump in first, please feel free to do it. Round 1 we have, for Kiss, Marry, Kill, is Ares, Eleni, and Videri. Go for it, Richard.
So, Kiss is Eleni, because if you listen to the last episode, you'll understand why. Marry is Videri, because, seems like she's got good head on her shoulders, and that is a flame hair joke.
She's a she's a reasonable individual, the most reasonable individual.
As long as you've got candles, as long as you've got a membership with the candle company, you should be all set.
Is she just like I'm just like my wife also just likes candles and seems to be quite content with that.
And kill, I hate to say it's got to be Ares, and the reason is, I mean, you guys had to see this coming. I only had 3 options, and kill was left. But Ares, his agenda is too closely aligned to Lolliputs.
So it's got like a rival sort of thing. He's just like, no, there can only be one Highlander style.
Right, that's exactly right.
Well, look, Faustus is going to break the game because we didn't specify the rules. The reality is that he's only committed to his deity. He can't kill, so he's just going to kiss them all.
That's not how it works. You have to tell me, no, not taking that shit. Kiss, marry, kill.
Send me. So I need Duncan Knuckle immediately to represent me in what is becoming a complete farce. Okay, so I've got to rank order this.
If Eldath came to him and just went, my child.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, he'd kill Lenny because she creates too much chaos. Kiss Videri because committing to someone who is like hasn't quite worked it all out. It's a lot, and he would marry Ares.
Fair, nice. And what entices you about Ares for the marry? Is his unbounded optimism? Is it the fact that he's killed several ancient red dragons?
Well, marriage is a big commitment. I feel like there's a level of, stability around Ares. It might be the 4 hooves on the ground. I don't know. But yeah, I think he's a dependable character, and I think that the most important thing, you know, in marriage is the quality of one's heart. So, you know, and he's got a big heart for a small fella.
Yeah, two probably. We don't know the rough anatomy of
Yeah,
centaurs, but that's probably a
yeah,
true thing.
and look, let's not get too into the mechanics of how the marriage is going to work and all that stuff. But
Yeah, no, it's
And
all
that would be
good.
appreciated.
Round two, Arctic, which, funnily enough, I personally have not met, but I'll leave you guys to make your calls on that. Aridon and Weller.
so I'd marry Weller.
Ooh.
Kiss Aridin to make up with him, and I would. Oh, I guess I have to kill Arctic, which is probably a bit of an ask, but
Eldaf
yeah,
sends another vision to you and just goes, of these three people, you have to choose kiss, marry, kill, and then actually go through with the kill.
yeah. The whole, you know, yeah. I mean, you've swindled me with these rules that you're just
Yep.
simply making up as you go. But
That's what makes me such a good dungeon master. I just make shit up. Cool. What about you, Richard? Lolly puts kiss, marry, kill for Arctic, Aridon, and Weller.
Easy choice. So kiss Weller, because I mean that the red on her lips is the language of a passion, and most likely not blood.
I mean, in several hundred years being alive, got to be a good kisser, right? Lots of practice in that time.
She might bite.
Marry Aridin. He's got a small business. He does have a drinking problem, which is a mark against him. But I feel like I can change him.
Red flag, not a red flag.
No, I can. I feel like I can make him a better man. And kill Arctic, which is also easy because I am a jealous lover, and as we previously said, it'd be kiss a Lenny, and he's already kissed a Lenny, so it's taking out one of the exes.
Mm-hmm. I like that by exclusion Arctic was Falstus's, and then yours is just like, nah, I've got eyes for her, and you mate. So he's a very jealous individual, I feel, Lolly, but I love it. All right, very, very, very last, our last round, before we actually probably jump into fan questions. We'll do what would your character rather probably another time. Maybe I'll switch them around. Maybe we'll play a different game each time. But round 3 for Kiss, Marry, Kill. You guys are gonna like this one. Biff Hardblaster, Bilton Carruthers, and Duncan Knuckle.
Richard, you have to go first.
Yeah, this is great. I mean, obviously, you'd kill Bilton Carruthers because he's a swindler and can't be trusted. You would, I think, kiss Biff Hardblaster because he's here for a good time, not a long time. And you'd marry Duncan Knuckle because while he is a small town lawyer, he is, in fact, a voice of the people and out there trying to make some good in the world.
I mean, let's face it, if you were going to marry anyone, you'd want to marry someone who is just knows how to do all of the justice and of the peasants. You know?
Yep, that's fair.
I mean, if you needed some legalizing done, then you wouldn't need to go down the street and get that by anybody else.
It's marvelous. You could simply, I mean, I'm a priest, but you could make it even more official, like with paperwork. Yeah, to be honest, mine is the same. For pretty much the same reasons.
You just like, yep, kill Bilton, kiss Biff, and then marry Duncan for his stability and, it'd be interesting. Married to a lawyer. Awesome. Well, thank you all. That was Kiss, Marry, Kill. Obviously, if everybody likes it, we'll continue doing some style of game during these. I like the idea. We're now going to... yes.
Can I ask, how much XP did we get for killing?
For killing those people? Well, they're all commoners, so CR 0, which is 0.
Marriage would be milestone though, right? So we get like with the.
I'll authorize everybody to get half a level, but just make sure you got to pass it through Luke as well. So fan questions. We had a couple of good ones. We'll probably just start with the nice one in the chat at the start. So this was chat fellow Kaz5299. Their question was, what's the strongest monster that you fought in the campaign so far? It's a bit of a general one, but I guess what Lolliput and Falsus think is the biggest foe they've faced thus far.
It's got to be the owlbear, mostly because Faustus really didn't participate in the combat against the Templars. And to be fair, they didn't really, after they were fireballed, they didn't really put up much of a fight. So I'd say the owlbears were fiercer than the gnolls, for sure.
Awesome. Richard?
Counter opinion. The biggest monster, the biggest foe
Into fact,
is the establishment. It's the man. Bringing it to the man, and this is a foe we're yet to take down. So the battle's still ongoing. Watch this space.
So you're going straight after Eldrick Menard, are you? And the Emperor himself.
And even he is just a cog in the machine. We're gonna bring down this whole rutted system.
That's
I like
so
that.
Good.
I still say owlbears.
I like that. But you're wrong, it's owlbears.
Just like, yeah, no. Excellent. All right, so going to our fantastic fans question form. Let's see, what's the first one I want to talk about here? Well, let's. This is a nice one. From the desk of Metal Mum, who we all know is pretty much our #1 fan, and by #1 fan, she kind of helps us run the stream now. So thank you so much for that.
My heart needs work.
Yeah.
There we go. That's better.
If you could swap characters from any other player in the campaign for one session, so a bit of a Freaky Friday thing, who would you choose and what would you do with them?
Oh, that's a great question.
It's a good one.
Can I go? Because I already have the answer.
Do it.
It's Falsters. I would switch bodies with him, and I would just run amok.
LFP devs, fucking guys!
Yeah.
Straight in the first brothel.
I'd be marrying cats and dogs. I'd be drinking breakfast wine till it was coming out of every one of my orifices in the town square.
Or would you? Would the most rebel thing to be not drinking breakfast wine?
Just make sure everyone knows my love of breakfast wine. I'd be walking around in like almost like a t-shirt from a resort that's like breakfast wine all the time, and that's what it would say, and it would be covered in breakfast wine stains. I'd just be slapping horses. I'd be running amok.
I think for me, it's probably, it'd probably be Lilith. I think because it's probably the polar opposite of Faustus. It'd be great to, get inside that chaotic mind and really find out how far south she comes from. Like, I got some suspicions as a player, regardless of how Faustus feels about it, the character seems like a good time.
You could probably go in and while you're in possession of her body, completely change out her wardrobe for it just like all white, all pastels.
Ah,
The next morning she comes in and you just hear this piercing scream. She's like, "What is this?" And just comes out like with all these like really
white
nice
dresses.
white dresses.
I
You
I wonder
diabolical pieces of shit.
how many minutes, nay seconds, it may take for that thing to be covered in blood, though. Probably mine.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Great question.
No, that was a good question. Thank you, Metalman, for that. Next question. So this is from a new questionnaire. I don't know what the word for that is.
Question mark.
Question Master. Yes, there we go. So obviously Metal Mum and the rest of the cast always put some questions in, but I think we have a true fan here who's put in his very first couple of questions, and his one is actually for you, Lolliput. Is where did the name Lolliput come from? Why did you name him Lolliput? So this is from Zach.
Thank you very much for the question, Zach. So I think I loved the idea of backwards engineering a nickname, which was Lolly. And when you just kind of get a rhythm, and you kind of like lolly, 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 a lolly pill, lolly pull, lolly put, and kind of got there. And so I kind of like the alliteration as well of Lolliput Lothenway. And Loth is a very obvious nod to a fairly well-known spider demon queen.
No idea who you talk about.
But
secrets.
Yeah, sure.
How we can't really take her disposition from the main canon of D&D and try and paste her onto this world here, but maybe some more stuff will kind of come out about that in the future.
Nice. So riffing off that, I think Zach, he didn't specifically ask that question of you, Falsters, but I guess same question to you on behalf of Zach. Where did Falsters Falsters' name come from? Why did you call him Falsters?
Yeah, so my longtime World of Warcraft character was a priest, and his name was Faustus. And it was kind of like I always liked the name Faustus from literature, and so it was sort of it was a play on that. I liked how that sounded, but then I wanted to add the L, and that's where the name sort of came from. And then when it came to creating characters for the campaign, I knew that he's a dwarven priest in World of Warcraft. But I knew in this world, I had a strong feeling about playing a particular type of elf. And yeah, I just brought that came across. And the surname Delafay is one that I've used for multiple characters through various games, but also in our Richard's game of Strahd, Renmei is Renmei Delafay. So it's just it's like my family name for my characters. But yeah, that's where Faustus came from. World of Warcraft and a play on Faustus. Faust. Anyway,
Fair.
I'll drop it in the chat later.
Yep, fair. So awesome. So then jumping over to, I guess, a generic question. We might as well stick with Zach. He filled out all three of them, which is Faustus, Lolliput, and a generic guest question. This one might be very contentious, actually, but it's a good question. I like it. So Zach has asked, what is your most hated Dungeons and Dragons race? What race do you just don't like? You just think it's stupid, silly, or just rubs you the wrong way, looks at you funny, has too many arms, it's too generic, it's human.
Oh man, that is actually. Do you have a go-to response, Richard? You look like you have an answer on the tip of your tongue. I'm struggling.
Is it Ash?
So
He's gonna
wait,
be like
wait,
Astral Elf.
No,
that's a secret.
I used to hate tieflings. I used to think they were too much for the setting. But I actually love tieflings now. I love how they kind of fit into the tapestry, and how they kind of fit into the sociology. If you want to get kind of like a little bit like dumb around like Dungeons and Dragons lore, I love that. I'm yet to kind of find a love for Aarakocra, or Goliath.
Jonathan.
Just you, just you wait until you meet a certain
Oh
Aarakocra
God.
by the name of Faxanadu. You will come to love to hate them, but yeah, um,
N-
fair.
Funnily enough, yeah, just mimicking that for 2 seconds, Richard. Aarakocra is great mechanically. If you're thinking about it from a mechanical standpoint for the game, the Aarakocra race is one of the best races. But if you're looking at it from an aesthetic perspective, it just doesn't do it for me. Doesn't do it for me. It's not my most hated. I'm not gonna say that because I'm not the one being interrogated, but
Yeah, look, and I I feel like later I'll be like, oh, of course, that piece of shit. But right now, like I'm I'm sort of circling the turtle, as being just like, you know, like sort of like just unnecessary. You know, um, but then like one of my favorite games has a character that is sort of that ilk. So yeah, in general, I think that I've really liked the way the number of races have sort of exploded. Like there's so many other options, and I think that perhaps that's without pointing to one, that's probably one where I'm like, it's probably like I come from like sort of a vanilla Forgotten Realms sort of flavor, sort of the novels of the 90s and stuff. So now that it's gotten so broad when you include, all of the, the Feywild creatures and various other expansions to the setting and stuff, I'd say that it's probably gotten a bit broad. So generally I like sort of like the canon and then a few flavor classes. But if I had to pick one right now, it'd be the total. But son of a bitch, I swear there'll be one I'll be like, I should have said this.
you'll jump
It'll
on
come to me
D&D
later.
Beyond, open up the mooches, and then
Yeah.
scroll down all the different races and just be like,
There it is.
"You!"
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that insight. That's an interesting question. I guess
Mm.
while we just have a tiny little bit extra time, I will ask one more from Metal Mum, but I'm going to flip side that question. What do you believe? What as players is your favorite race? What race is just like every time you start making a character concept, it almost automatically becomes that race, and then you have to kind of veer yourself away with deep thought processes to change it from that. And why is it
It's a
tiefling?
thing. I'll kick off on this one. I don't really have one. It's kind of almost the excuse me. Kind of the opposite that I'll sort of there's no one race that I just um go to. When I think about the one shots that we played over the last couple of years and just rolling up different characters and stuff, like it'll usually start with a like an idea around a character, and then from that will flow the race that sort of comes to mind about that character. And a good example of this was Fig Duskwood, where for our one-shot Cult of Hunger, I used the Knave rule set. Shout out to Ben Milton and that rule set. I was like, I'm just going to try using this to roll up a bunch of stuff, and I, had a bunch of characteristics and attributes and stuff about how this particular character look, and it made me think Hobgoblin, and and then I was like, okay, so I kind of see it, and it started by rolling on that table and coming up with this character with a bunch of sort of traits and features, how it looked and stuff, and that was sort of became sort of like a basis of it. I knew I wanted it to be kind of like a detective style character, um, and yeah, so it's kind of a non-answer, but I just that's not a thing for me.
Fair. Richard?
Um, I'm bringing two answers to the table again.
Oh.
I love as a base race, I love orc. I know it's kind of half orc, but I always just think about it as like
Totally full orc.
yeah,
Yeah.
full orc. I love orcs. Um, um, yeah, I love something about just where they fit in like all those kind of fantasy. There's kind of like a thread that kind of ties it, like dwarves and elves and stuff like that. My other one is I actually really love the Hexblood. Um, I think it was one that came out in one of the more recent kind of additions to Dungeons and Dragons. But I love the idea of a race which is kind of like fashioned through some event, kind of like a sorcerer can be kind of given these kind of powers by an external force, and a warlock kind of makes a pact. Like the Hexblood is, you know, tainted or twisted by like the hags and the witches, and it kind of really speaks to me of kind of like Ash from the Evil Dead
Mm.
movies. I love all that kind of like creepy stuff that they do, and like pulling out teeth and hair and stuff like that. So there's something really cool about that for me.
Ooh. Well, thank you for that, Richard. And I'm just going to give a quick shout out to Wills, 0424, who's just subscribed. So thank you for that. Appreciate
Wills.
it. Wills. Yeah.
Don't forget to join our Discord server, where you will get access to a special private channel just for our subscribers called the Interdimensional Doorway.
Yeah, awesome.
So the Discord link in the things.
And all the things. There's things everywhere. Awesome. Well, we have time for our last question. And it is going to be from the desk of Metal Mum again. I think she asked this one of Falstus, but to be completely honest, I'm just going to make this a generic one. Because it can be used as generic. Which is, if you could bring any fictional character that exists outside the Dungeons and Dragons universe into this campaign as an NPC or ally, who would it be, and how would they fit into the adventuring party or the character, the group and stuff?
I feel like you should have asked us this question at 7:30 when we kicked off the stream, and we could have just talked about it the whole stream.
Yep. So let's not do that. You've got 2 minutes each, and just one. Just pick one.
Ah, jeez.
What would be the top one you'd like to get in? I know a few people. I think she's asking this of you guys because she knows I have a thing about bringing characters I like from other sort of shows and lore and things like that, and games and things, and making a version of them within the campaigns that I do, usually as NPCs. So what would be one from each of you?
So I'll give you two. One I have actually done. So in one shot that I wrote called "The Breaking of the Grand Seal," there's the character of Astral, the wizard, and he's a direct lift from Shining Force 2, where the main protagonists, they're young teenagers, and their schoolmaster or teacher is Sir Astral, the wizard, and so I just think he's kind of like just bearded sort of Gandalfy looking sort of character, pointy hat, but he's part of a story at a game that means a lot to me. And the other one would be Unicron from Transformers, the 1986 movie.
Yes.
The idea of, I mean, think about reskinning that for, Dungeons and Dragons, perhaps, you've got an entire civilization of, what's the, why is it escaping me?
Warforged.
The Warforged, you know, uh, and, uh, just dedicated to creating this giant thing that sort of maybe gets out of control, and it's literally like world devouring. It's just just the things that you could do with sort of that as a device. Imagine fleets of from the astral sea, flying into space to take on this giant machine planet that's going to devour Toril, Ormar. Just yeah, such a cool thing. And the lore of of how he was created and why he was created and stuff, you could take that as well. So yeah, Unicron and Astral Wizard.
Well, thank you, Mike. Very good
That was
answers.
hard. Like all fiction was passing in front of my eyes.
Everything you've ever loved, you're just like, oh my god, which one do I do? Richard, how about you?
So I got a serious one and a joke one. The serious one is Kaladin from the Stormlight Archives, the Brandon Sanderson books. He is a great character. It's a really great magic system for those of you who've read it. But I started trying to make him. I'm not going to say anything more about him because I don't want to ruin anything if people haven't read the books yet. But I started trying to make a character like him with a combination of a hexblade, of like the padlock hexblade kind of build. I thought there was something really kind of cool in that kind of system and how that kind of might work at higher levels. His position on the team, he's kind of quite a tortured soul, Kaladin from the books. So blessed with a lot of power, but also kind of like with the same kind of struggles and some kind of mental health challenges as well. So I think he'd fit right in with the rest of us, in this kind of in this world that we're kind of creating. And then the joke one is, of course, bringing in the xenomorph from the Alien series, who would be my attack dog, and then just watch as the world of Amar succumbs to the xenomorph plight as they sweep across the land. A new blight has entered the game, would appear on the screen.
Yep. Alien parasites, all that kind of jazz. It's very reminiscent of, just as a very quick aside, some of the novella they did post 3 or 2 or something like that, where the xenomorphs make it to Earth and all this kind of stuff.
I read those ones. There's some really great scenes about like
so
this.
Good.
You have xenomorph soldiers with like numbers carved into their exoskeleton.
Yeah. Well, thank you both for those answers. And yes, that was a tough one. All of creation of fiction that you love and adore, whittled down into 1 or 2 characters.
Now I feel like I could riff off Richard for ages. Imagine bringing in Basil Fawlty from Fawlty Towers, and he's like the innkeeper in every town you go to. Some version of him.
There was an aspiration of mine to make a meme mini campaign where I would just meme out the whole thing, and there would just be everything would just be famous people reskinned. But yeah, it was just too silly. Couldn't get it off the ground.
Yet. Don't mention the orcs
yet. Well, unfortunately, that is probably where we're going to have to finish tonight. It has been an absolute pleasure hanging out with you two fine gentlemen as we delve into these very hard-hitting questions, like Kiss, Marry, Kill, for the many personalities of Lolliput Lithenoid.
It's a scam.
And just deep diving into some of those critical events that have happened leading up to and including session number 8. So it'll be a few months before we reconvene, and we'll have a fair few more sessions under our belts. So we'll be able to dive in a little bit more and see how things are progressing, see how far things have come. But for everybody who's joined us tonight, I thank you so wholeheartedly for sticking with us and going through this amazing show that we're trying to propagate here. And don't forget, you can watch us if you subscribe to Twitch. You can watch us on demand as you wish. Otherwise, these episodes are generally put out 1 or 2 weeks later onto YouTube, which you can watch at your leisure. And we're all across the Facebook and Instagram for socials, so jump on those to know what's going on, what's coming up, but also in order to engage in our social sort of presence and get onto our Discord, as Mike said, for real life chats. All the cast members, all the crew members are on that Discord, so you don't have to wait till Secrets if you want to ask a question. Technically, it would be nice because then we have more questions to ask. But if you want to be like, hey Mike, you said this in this episode, what was that about?
Or Lilith, what did you have for breakfast this morning?
Yeah.
Ask the hard-hitting
The
questions.
real hard, the so hard questions that she wouldn't even be able to answer. But I thank our guests, I thank our viewers. That is all we have time for tonight for Secrets of the Conclave, episode 4. And from us to you, thank you so much. And we will see you tomorrow night for the Star Wars 5th edition one-shot. Luke is running a little bit of a one-shot there where he's using some of his... he's really passionate about Star Wars, guys. So I think that's going to be an absolute banger of a session to watch. So if you haven't given any of our content a go, I feel like this one's going to be a really, really good one. Luke's going to put 110% effort into it. Not that he doesn't anywhere else, but he's a veteran of the Star Wars 5e game, so that's his jam. So I think you guys are all going to absolutely love that. And then we will be returning to Chronicles of Amar with episode 9 next week. Until then, have a good night, and we will see you around. Thank you all for joining us.
See everybody.